It is officially the Run It Back Broncos for the 2026 season. We'll talk about it on today's Locked On Broncos Squad Show.
Day one of NFL free agency didn't have a lot of action, but maybe today on day two, there will be some traction.
Not so much of a free agency frenzy quite yet, but the night is always darkest before the dawn.
Hey, I'm Nick Ferguson. If you think the Broncos are dumb with the running backs, I have a couple of guys that they should be in the mix for.
Let's break it on down on today's Locked On Broncos Squad Show. Let's get into it, fellas.
From the South Stands, it's the Broncos Squad. Everything Denver Broncos every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Mile High City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Gear up and squad up. The Broncos Squad Show starts now.
It is your Locked On Broncos Squad Show right here on your Locked On Broncos YouTube channel and audio feed. We got the full squad rocking and rolling with us here today. Aniello Piro, Cody Roark, Sayre, Bedinger, and Nick Ferguson breaking down all the latest news and notes in the world of Denver Broncos football. And there's definitely some news to sink our teeth into. They did make some signings, but maybe not the signings that a lot of Broncos country was hoping for or was expecting, to say the least. So we'll break it on down for you guys on the program today. Do us a favor, hit that like button and smash that subscribe button for us here on the channel. Really helps us out. And let's get into it, fellas. Cody, your initial thoughts on the first 24 hours or so of free agency. I know there was a lot of anticipation about running back, about linebacker, some other positions as well. What do you make of how the first 24 hours played out?
Yeah, I mean, it was non-existent in terms of, the expectations versus reality. There was a lot of hype. I had felt like personally, and I'm only going to speak for myself. I'll let you guys speak for yourselves. I felt like on day one, they were going to make some big splashes. I felt like they were going to target some of their needs that they had aggressively, right? And we've talked about those needs as tight end, running back, linebacker. We thought, hey, maybe Denver's going to go make a big splash at running back. That was arguably the one position I think we perceived them to be the most aggressive about, right? And, of course, we found out they were in conversations with Travis Etienne before he decided to go to New Orleans, which is fine. They re-signed JK Dobbins, which, in my opinion, I like the move, and I know he's got a chip on his shoulder. If he can stay healthy, right, then I think it's going to be a good move. He's been very productive when healthy. But I just think for where George Paton, Greg Penner, Sean Payton said, hey, we're going to be aggressive, I think how the fan base is certainly reacting, and certainly from our perspectives covering the team, I felt like we would have saw more, and we didn't. So, I mean, it's still early. They're still today. So let's see what they said do. But all the top names, all the really, really big names, if you're going to make a big swing, they're not there.
Yeah, they're off the board. And Sayre, I forget if it was the last episode we did or maybe a couple of episodes in a row, like you talked about like this idea of a smoke screen, right? And we heard about how the Broncos, according to some reports, were going to be uber aggressive as it pertains to signing a running back. Like that was part of the reason why the New York Jets ended up signing Breece Hall to the franchise tag. So I guess it is kind of a smokescreen to a certain extent, but what do you just make of the overall mentality for Denver coming out here to start free agency?
Well, they definitely didn't come out swinging in terms of, hey, we're going to throw a bunch of money at the big name free agents in this year's class. And I think that's not really my problem, right? My problem is, and I guess we got to give them some time, but my problem is that there's been upgrades out there at the positions that they said self-proclaimed needs, right? And when you have a chance to upgrade a roster that was just a couple of plays away from getting to the Super Bowl, even without Bo Nix, to me, that indicates that you haven't even put on the boxing gloves yet. And I think that the Broncos are just so sick of the idea of almost being in on certain guys, or, they finished second in, and honestly, some of the best deals are the ones you don't make, right? Like the Jalen Nailor thing, where the Broncos were named as a potential suitor for Jalen Nailor, who signed with the Raiders. Like, I don't understand that. I would have been very confused by that signing. So I guess running it back is not necessarily the worst thing. It could have been worse based on what he got paid by the Raiders. So I'm a little disappointed after day one, but also it's only day one. I just think it's okay to be upset about the day one approach, given how close this team is to winning it all.
Talk to me, Nick.
You know what it seems like, if you're a coach and you're coaching your kids and someone else's kids, it's just like it's the way that Broncos country feels right now. They would have rather coach someone else's kids and be really excited about that opposed to coaching their own kids, because that's basically what the Broncos did. They brought back familiar faces. Were there guys that we talked about, and because we all had a wish list of running backs and linebackers that we thought the Broncos should have taken in day one, and that's what day one is all about, right? You open up free agency and the legal tampering period, everyone is excited because it's like Christmas, it's like new toys, but everyone's disappointed when you don't get those new toys, right? And even though the Broncos plug gaps that we knew that they had, linebacker and running back, just the problem is just it's familiar faces. And you look, I would have loved to see Kenneth Walker here. Hell, I would have loved to see Travis Etienne, but I remember last show that we did, I don't know which one of you guys brought this up, but you brought up the fact that Travis Etienne didn't want to come to a place that was cold. So he opted for a place that was warm and he was familiar with, was his hometown. And just think about it. Any one of us would have done the same thing, right? Someone's going to pay you a boatload of money. You get a chance to play in a dome, and you get a chance to play in a state that you're from. It's like, yes, sign me up for that one. But I don't think the Broncos missed out on a lot of those guys. I think they brought back guys who they were familiar with. And even though it's not a splash, it's guys that you know that were really productive, because there are people, and I haven't looked at it, but I've been told that there have been Broncos fans who are upset about bringing Alex Singelton back. I say, well, let's not forget what happened and how we got here in the first place. It was because of the Broncos' damn defense that the Broncos kind of had the home record that they had. They were 14-3, and they were the number one seed. Yeah, you know, Bo Nix had a little to do with it, but it was all on the Broncos' defense. And if I'm not mistaken, let me take you guys back just a little. Remember when, you know, Jackson Dart was here and the Giants and the rookie quarterback, they were moving the ball on the Broncos defense, and all of a sudden there was a shift in viewpoint that really changed the game in the fourth quarter. Involved two of the guys that the Broncos brought back, Alex Singelton and Justin Strnad. If Alex Singelton doesn't run over Cam Scatterboo to force Jackson Dart in the arrow throw, and just so happened Justin Strnad steps in front of it, we're having a different conversation at this particular point. The Broncos don't even go on the run that they went on. So I would tell Broncos fans, man, pump your brakes. All is not lost. They're not done. And like I teased at the very beginning, the Broncos still have some moves to make at running back, and I do have a list of running backs that I'll get into.
Yeah, I think it's well said, and there is still some meat on the bone as it pertains to what this offseason might look like from free agency. Of course, we know the Broncos could still make a couple of trades if they feel so inclined. So I don't think it's panic mode right now for the Broncos. And look, I think the guys they're bringing back are impactful players. Singleton, Strnad. I can understand the frustration with Troutman. I think it's more so about the contract that he got than bringing him back itself. But we'll get into all that. Because I want to do a segment on the running back. I want to do a segment on the linebackers, because those seem to be the two position groups that Denver's targeted the most. Got some of that news over the course of the weekend. But let me ask you guys this, Cody, I'll start with you. Which position group, with respect to how the Broncos handled it, surprised you more? Was it the lack of aggressiveness in running back, or was it just running it back, for lack of a better phrase, at linebacker?
Well, you mean between just those two positions?
Yeah, like which one were you more surprised about and how they handled?
Oh, I mean, I was more surprised about tight end than any, running back.
Fair. You can do tight end too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I felt like I was just more surprised with the tight end position, just because what we have talked about here. Look, I think Adam Troutman is a solid blocker, right? I think you look at maybe some of the contracts, Charlie Kolar, what he just got for the Los Angeles Chargers, he's a more consistent blocker. The thing with Troutman is I just feel like he's fine, but if he's your primary move that you're getting a 3-year extension to, that's where I have the problem with it. I was okay, and I've been on the record on various shows saying, like, I'm okay with Adam Troutman coming back as long as the Broncos make another move at tight end, right? But as it stands right now, we know Evan Ingram's back in the fold, and I think maybe the hope, right, fingers crossed here, the hope is that with Davis Webb now calling plays, that's going to mean more Evan Ingram, which we've kind of pounded the table for, right? I understand that. But they're bringing back Troutman on a 3-year deal. They're bringing back Nate Adkins as well. And you got Caleb Lohner and Patrick Murtaugh on your training camp roster, and there's no guarantee those guys are going to transform into anything. And so for me, that's where I think the biggest disappointment is the Broncos not going out there and actually, I think, getting a better blocking tight end, in my opinion, right? I'm not clamoring saying they should have been out there and they should have got the best pass-catching tight end available. I think that they need a guy that can block and catch well. Like, I think Troutman is underrated as a pass catcher, but he's not targeted enough. He's not ran on routes as often. He is reliable when they go to him from time to time, but my goodness, it's not moving the needle for Denver at this position.
He had 20 catches and a lone touchdown last season.
600 plus snaps for him though last season. Like,
right,
he was the tight end one de facto by number of snaps played, and it's like 600 plus snaps, and you only have 20 catches. You only have 23 targets. Like, the room, that's where my frustration came in about tight end, is that, like, you just got to upgrade this room. Especially, like, Evan Ingram's not on the roster after this year. This is his last year unless he gets an extension. But it's like, you need to add to this room, because this isn't just about 2026. It's about 2026 and 2027 in the near future. Or if you have an injury at this position, all of a sudden the Broncos are trying to clamor for Mercedes Lewis out of retirement potentially. Like, that's where I'd say my frustration is with, like, just the moves. I like Troutman. I like Dobbins. But the idea is, like, I'm more surprised that they went out and they spent a 3-year deal on Troutman versus
for $17 million. Like, it's one thing if it's, 5 or even 10 over 3. Like, you could $17 million. Like, that's the one that just threw me for
if they trade, and Sayre and I have been talking about this, if they trade for, let's say they try to trade for a Luke Musgrave, I'm happy. Okay, then I'll change my opinion about it. I just think them running it back at tight end, which was one of the positions they had the least amount of effective production with, that was just a little frustrating to me.
What are your thoughts, Sayre?
Yeah, I think also, too, the fact that you're bringing back, when you're running it back and you're not getting a hometown discount from the guys that you're running it back with, that is a problem to me as well. And I'm not saying, like, well, those guys should take less money to come back to Denver, but I mean, what it represents is not only you're paying market value for your own guys, which I get is good for a long-term thing, but also you're preventing the opportunity to upgrade at your positions of need for any possible avenue except the NFL draft. And, like, I don't like that strategy for a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl, because at what point is a rookie at tight end, who's your tight end 3 to open the season, at what point is that guy going to make a substantial impact on the team? Like, only if there's an injury, right? That was the same case with Jahdae Barron. It was the same case with Pat Bryant. So, like, I'm over the idea of using top 100 picks on players who won't contribute. So it's like, either go all in on the draft or go get an upgrade that's available for a very minimal increase of price. Like you guys are talking about Kolar, Cade Otton, all these other guys. You're blocking the opportunity for anybody else to come in and steal snaps by staying with what's familiar, by going with what you know, by paying those guys roughly market deals. And I think that, like, look, that's the problem that I have with it, is I like JK Dobbins. I think JK Dobbins is going to be a great fit for this team, for the locker room once again. But historically speaking, you can't rely on him to be around all season. And I hope that he is. I really do. But how are the Broncos going to be able to bring in any other help at running back besides a trade? Like, Nick, I'm excited to hear your list, because for any free agents that are out there at the running back position, why would they agree to come to Denver when JK Dobbins is clearly running back 1 and RJ Harvey's clearly running back 2? I think the Broncos just missed an opportunity to potentially upgrade that position and it's a bad draft class at running back. It is. I mean, the guy that everybody keeps talking about, Mike Washington, had 12 fumbles in college. Are you going to try to fix a guy with fumbling problems on a team that's trying to win the Super Bowl? So I know I'm going on a huge tangent right now, but I don't like that you're paying market value for homegrown talent, essentially, right? And you're bringing back guys when you could have upgraded at those positions talent-wise, especially at linebacker, where you said last year, hey, we have to upgrade over Singelton and Strnad. Well, what now? Now you just cut the guy that you paid last year to upgrade those guys.
It's perplexing. And I mean, reports indicate that they were trying to go after Travis Etienne. And, Nick, you brought it up earlier. Like, I was the guy that pointed out that Etienne wanted to probably stay closer to home and play in warm weather. And that really proved to be the case as he goes back to his home state of Louisiana. So I do think that Denver was pretty aggressive, at least from what I've gathered, in trying to get Travis Etienne. I think the number that Etienne signed for is a lot bigger than I thought it was personally going to be. And then I think you also saw Denver pivot in short order to JK Dobbins once Etienne was signed.
Yeah, free agency is a delicate dance. So you want to make sure that you have the right shoes. And this is a case of the Broncos just being priced out. I mean, just like we had our list and the fans had theirs, the Broncos had their wish list. But sometimes when there's another person that enters into the equation, it changes things. The numbers go up. And the Broncos say, look, hey, listen, based on the money we have, even though Russell Wilson's contract is off the books, we have budgeted for this amount for this particular position, and they just got priced out. As it pertains to Alex Singelton and Justin Sternard, I know everyone wanted, Devin Lloyd, but once again, this is what this is going to cost you, right? It's going to may cost you a little, may cost you a lot, but it's going to cost you. And once again, what did they budget for that particular position? How valuable did they look at Devin Lloyd and say, well, we're willing to put this amount of money on the table? Obviously, he's not here with the Denver Broncos, so that tells you exactly where the Broncos were looking to go. But here is, I guess, a silver lining if you wanted to look at it in this particular way. We see a lot of teams every single year, they're adding players to their roster, and usually it's outside players, which tells you, well, that team wasn't as successful. When you look at what the Broncos actually did, they didn't go out and get the guys they wanted, so they had a contingency plan, right? And I would like to think that JK Dobbins was always a fallback plan. And I would like to think that Justin Sternard and Alex Singelton were always the fallback plan, because we talked about it before. That fact that Dre Greenlaw wasn't going to be with this team based on his injury history, but more importantly, what he said in his last interview here with the Denver Broncos. It was like, there's no way he's going to survive that. So you go out, you sell to your fan base. We're trying to get the best players. If we can't get those, we're going to bring back our players because we trust them and we're confident in the players that we have. And, JK Dobbins did a great job here with the Broncos offense. And like Sayre said, that's the biggest question, his availability. But this is why I feel that the running backs that I'm going to mention later on are good guys for the Broncos to look at. And I'll say this. You're right, Sayre, when you said, hey, listen, why would a veteran running back come here when they already have R.J. Harvey and they have J.K. Dobbins? This is why you now look into the rookie pool, because guess what? You get those guys on rookie salaries, and now those guys and the guys I'm going to mention, they're a whole lot better than what the Broncos have on this roster as far as the depth.
Well, let's hit a break so we can get to those names. Interesting conversation coming up here as it pertains to the running back room for the Denver Broncos. Nick's got some names. We'll go back and forth and have some fun with that when we come back right here on your Locked On Broncos Squad Show. Back in just a moment, folks. All righty. Real quick, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about our friends over at TurboTax, because it is tax time. But for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient thing to do. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, that's no fun. Emailing back and forth and wondering if they really understand your situation. That's a doozy to deal with as well. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Just head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Be sure to check out our friends over at TurboTax. Tax season is never fun, and Intuit TurboTax is going to make it just a little bit easier. So make sure to check them out and let them know that Locked On Broncos sent you. All right, welcome on back into the program. A Tuesday, March the 10th edition of the show. Aniello Piro, Cody Roark, Sayre Bedinger, and Nick Ferguson. We are your Locked On Broncos Squad Show. Hope everyone is hanging in there in Broncos country after a relatively disappointing day for the team. I'm officially coining it. I mean, it's nothing new, but they are the running back Broncos. Like literally every single signing, except they lose JFM, so they're running it back for the most part, but they're cutting Dre Greenlaw and they lose JFM along the way. But the core for this team is still very much intact. But Nick, I want to toss it to you. Let's get into this running back conversation. I think here's the thing that I want to say. There's about 5 free agent running backs that I think most of Broncos fans would have liked to see Denver go after. Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, Kenneth Gainwell, Rico Dowdle, and Tyler Algier. All 5 of those guys off the board. You have some additional names for us that Denver might be able to zero in on.
Well, yeah, I mean, my list is going to dig into the college ranks because I think that's where the Broncos find themselves at this point. And I would like to think that George Paton and Sean Payton kind of sat down with their staff and say, listen, we like JK. We like what he brought to us. And he had the Broncos run game kind of trending upward. And then they went down. When he went down, RJ Harvey came into the mix. So they were saying, look, man, we had our eye on some of the top guys. We didn't get them. We knew that we're not going to get every single guy. But now it's time for them to turn their kind of attention to what's happening on the college level. Now, we just had watched the NFL Combine, and there were some guys who ran, well at the Combine, performed well, but you're not going to get all of those guys. So I kind of came up with a list of guys that I would think that the Broncos would be interested in. There's no guarantee that the Broncos will select these guys, but I think that the Broncos, if they did select either of these guys, they will work well as young running backs in this offense. The first guy I want to start with is Jadarian Price from Notre Dame. Now, I know it may seem like it's far-fetched that the Broncos will be able to get a guy of this caliber, but the 1-2 punch of him and Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame were fantastic. And Jeremiah Love would be the one guy I would say, like, if there was a running back that I just had my mind on, like free agency, it would be Jeremiah Love, but the Broncos are not going to do that. So Jadarian Price would be a nice consolation prize if the Broncos were able to pull it off. The other 2 guys, Kentroy Allen from Penn State and Nicholas Singleton from Penn State, I think those guys will fit well in this offense because both guys are real explosive. And when you look at what the Broncos haven't had around here in a while was an explosive run game. And with that being said, I go back to when I was a member of the Broncos and we had Clinton Portis. I mean, that guy was a beast when you get handing off the ball to him. And as far as explosive plays, moving the chains, he was one of the better guys in the league. It's unfortunate they traded him to Washington, but, we got Champ Bailey in return. So it worked out for us. Right. I think it worked out all right. But those are some of the young guys that, for me, I would like to see the Broncos go after in this draft process because either of those 3 guys I named would be great fits for the Broncos run game.
I want to kick it.
Say again?
Not as a round 1 running back, I hope.
Well, no, not as a round 1 running back because we know how this works in the NFL. No one wants to take a running back in the first round, even though, there have been some running backs taken in the first round who've like Saquon Barkley, who no one thought that he would be the running back he was, but he showed up. But if the Broncos looking to take a running back maybe in the second round or third round, I think either of those 3 guys would be a great fit for this offense.
Yeah, Sayre, I'll kick it to you and just kind of food for thought as well, because I know you study up on the draft and the prospects as well. But I don't think the Chiefs signed Kenneth Walker. I think the Chiefs signing Kenneth Walker is confirmation that Jeremiah Love wouldn't even have been where the Chiefs are drafting as well. So I think that factors into it too. And not that the Broncos are drafting Jeremiah Love, but go ahead.
Which, quite frankly, is a big win for the Broncos to not have Jeremiah Love coming into the division, right? I think that's a fair trade or a good trade for the Broncos. The fact that you're going to be facing off against Walker instead of Jeremiah Love, I don't mind that. But I think with a guy like Price, even because of the quality at the top of this class, you'd have to take him at 30. And are you taking your running back 3 at 30? That's a negative way to perceive it, but and maybe he could be your future running back 1, like beyond this year. But then, you signed and put your faith in Dobbins, right? And you're going to give him carries. RJ Harvey needs a volume of touches to be effective. So if you're taking a running back in the first or second round, like that guy has to play. And that's part of my frustration with this. And I always compare this offseason puzzle to like a Sudoku where there's different ways, maybe there's different like pages in the Sudoku book and there's different levels of difficulty, but every puzzle, there's only one way to finish it, right? Like there's only one like right formula. And I just don't understand that you would take a running back in round 1 or even trade back and take one early round 2, who's going to be the 3rd guy on your depth chart. And Darian in the chat is talking about it as well. I mean, this Broncos team, they're going to have a future starter need at left guard beyond this year. Like, they're running it back with Ben Powers to keep with the theme of the run it back Broncos. Like, they're going to need a future starter at left guard. When are you going to be able to take one? Because you now need future starters at tight end, because Ingram's contract is up after this year. So you need a impact receiver at tight end. You need a potential starting left guard. Your tackles are both over the age of 30, 31. You have, obviously, John Franklin Myers leaving, so round one defensive lineman can't be ruled out. Linebacker is a round one consideration because that position group is obviously not solidified beyond this year. Although Sternada and Singelton signed multi-year contracts, I still think that, and the safety position, Brandon Jones is a free agent after this year. So, like, that's a justifiable round one position. I just think that they have too many. They've opened up this can of worms. They have to go make impact veteran additions at some of these other spots to fill those gaps that free agency is supposed to fill. I know everybody's got an opinion about, well, the teams that are spending big in free agency are teams like the Raiders. And it's like, okay, yeah, I get it, because the Raiders had to go fill out an entire roster. Nobody is jealous of the Raiders right now having a terrible roster and having to build it from scratch like an expansion team. The Broncos are missing an opportunity to make impact additions before the draft where they could use their high capital on the trenches, which is what they need. Like, that's what the Broncos need to focus on, and they're not giving themselves the ability to focus on it. They're signing guys in free agency that they now need to replace in the draft because they're not reliable options. Dobbins, Singelton, Troutman. So you're creating additional holes while spending money to fill that hole. It's just, that's where I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I'm not opposed to running it back, but I think you're not addressing properly these needs, and you're saying, hey, we still have to attack this in the draft.
If I can answer for just a second, I think where the Broncos find themselves being creatures of habit. They're looking at what they had on last year's roster and saying, okay, well, look at how far we were able to get with the guys that we had. If we can't get the guys we really need, we bring those guys back. Could that be kind of a false reality for them? Possibly. When we talk about, they're plugging a gap with, the tackle situation, the guard situation, I think for them, that's what they thought they were doing by bringing Pacheski back, who has spent time last season filling in for Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey. So they figure, we'll buy ourselves some time. We got a swing guy. And then also, if we bring these guys back, then we can do just what Aniello said, run it back. Is that the best philosophy to have? Maybe not. We'll get a chance to see how that unfolds. But what it looks like is this is what they were thinking. Maybe we can call it fool's gold or whatever you want to call it. But this is what they're thinking inside the organization. How can we bring back our players, put ourselves in the same position, not exhaust a lot of our resources, and damn the torpedoes. We don't care what the media and the fans say. Here's what we think, because when you do anything, you have to have a plan first, right? And they think that their plan is going to work. Now, we'll get a chance to see how it plays out and if it works out the way that they're hoping, but there are a lot of teams that don't have plans. But this is where I think the Broncos find themselves at this moment.
And I would take it a step further, Cody, and feel free to disagree with me. I think it's confirmation from the organization that they think if Bo Nix doesn't get hurt, they're in the Super Bowl. And I know we all probably feel that way as well. But I don't think you run it back when you're in the AFC Championship game, and we understand Bo getting hurt was terrible for them. But I think there is that true belief that even if they were to get to the Super Bowl and play Seattle, they liked the team and liked the roster they had in that situation. I don't think you make the moves the Broncos are making if you don't feel that way. I guess my concern is, I think we all agree the AFC is going to be a lot stronger next year, right? I mean, Baltimore with Max Crosby, you got to watch out for Cincinnati if they bounce back. You've got Buffalo, of course, they trade for DJ Moore. So I understand the theory of like we were this close last year, we're a game away from the Super Bowl. I understand that, but I'm also looking around the AFC landscape and saying this team, that team, this team is getting better as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% fair. I mean, everybody is getting better. But, that I'll argue the Chiefs. Yes, they got a better running back, but right now I'm not worried one bit about Kansas City yet. But what does worry me is the fact that they do have 2 first-round picks. What they do with that, I think, certainly matters. We'll get to that here in a little bit. The Raiders certainly got better, as they're more than likely anticipated to be taking Fernando Mendoza, the number 1 overall pick. They're building the offensive line, which that was really their biggest issue last year was they didn't have an offensive line that would allow Ashton Jeanty to have success. Ashton Jeanty is a very, very good player. He's going to be a problem. And then, Chargers, not necessarily worried about the Chargers. I mean, you should see Chargers fans. They're freaking out too about what's going on with their offseason. But for me, like the issue that I have with it, I'm not opposed to running it back, but I'm saying run it back, but upgrade at the same time. Add pieces that can make you better. Add depth options, right? Because if you do have an injury at any of these positions that we've talked about as biggest needs, all of a sudden you're in a problematic situation, right? For me, where the frustration kind of lies in this is looking at things that like Sean Payton says. Sean Payton, often at times, at the end of every year, he hates the idea that you're just building off the momentum of what you did. Like he says, no, I hate that idea because you don't. There is no momentum that carries over into the next season. You flip the game board up. You have to reassemble the pieces there. Sean himself even said at the NFL Combine, I'm not naive enough to understand that we won a lot of one-score games last year that could have easily flipped the other way. So running it back is a risky move. It's a gamble, and maybe it pays off, maybe it doesn't. But I think the biggest gripe that we're all having, I'm not saying I'm one of the Broncos to go out there and spend $100 million. No. What I'm saying is, like, if there is a position that you feel like, if you look at the offense, like, man, if we just had just a little bit of a better production at tight end, a better player at tight end, a better backup option at running back, maybe we would have done a little bit more, right? Maybe we would have gone further, right? But there's no guarantee that Denver's going to get right back to the AFC Championship this year just because they want to run it back. It's all about improving. Everybody else is improving. Not, we're talking about guys in the AFC, teams in the AFC that are improving, but it's also teams that the Broncos are going to play in the NFC next season, right? They're going to have 5 or 6 NFC games next season that they're going to have to play, and all of those teams got better. They're going to play the Carolina Panthers and that freaking defense that has just seemingly gotten really good over the last couple of days. Like, they're going to play the LA Rams. They're going to have to play the San Francisco 49ers. They're going to have to play the Pittsburgh Steelers, who now have Michael Pittman Jr. and DK Metcalf. Aaron Rodgers probably going to return there. It is going to be a tougher schedule, and I think that's why people are frustrated because, okay, everybody else is getting better, but people are looking at the Broncos and saying they're just seemingly okay with staying the same. They were good last year. We're not saying that they weren't. But it's like everybody else is getting better. You're either improving or you're not. And I think the widespread perception is that, yes, you brought these key guys back, a couple of key guys, but did you actually improve? Did you get better from last year? It's the same team.
I think it's well said, man. And look, I think the Broncos obviously had a great year with their 14 wins, but I also think it was just kind of a bit of a wacky season for the AFC. Like, to your point, I expect a lot of these teams to be improved. Jacksonville's not going anywhere. Buffalo's better, right? Like you throw in all these other teams plus their schedule. We shall, because they had a third place schedule this last season.
Who?
The Broncos.
Yeah, but that's
So
all that stuff is just content fodder. That stuff really doesn't even mean anything.
No, but it does matter to a certain extent. I think now you're playing all the division winners this year.
There's just too many non-controllable variables with that, right? Correct. I mean, like when you're talking about a third place team from last year versus a first place team from this year, like. I mean, you're talking about the Jaguars in the AFC South versus the Colts, right? So, I mean, the Colts are just as tough of an opponent for the third place AFC West team as the Jaguars are for the Broncos.
Sure.
I think there's the AFC North was topsy-turvy because of injuries and inconsistency. And like the AFC East is unpredictable. And so I think there's just, Joe Burrow wasn't a factor most of last year. Lamar Jackson wasn't himself last year. Daniel Jones, what happens if he's healthy for an entire season? Like, how does that make things different in that race? Like, does CJ Stroud bounce back or does he get worse? Like, there's so many non-controllable variables for the Broncos. This is exactly why you make impact additions to a roster that you believe is good. Like, if you're making these moves to bring these guys back, that's exactly why you go out and you bring in the Devin Lloyds, or you go out and you bring in the Cade Ottens, or whoever you believe is, hey, this guy's at the top of our free agent board, and we're going to sacrifice a little comfortability because we're going to have to teach the guy the defense. Like, I'm not trying to put any words in anybody's mouth or anything like that, but does Vance not want to do that after the whole Dre Greenlaw situation? Is he saying like it'd be preferable to me that we just don't have to teach somebody the defense from scratch and talent be darned. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I'm throwing ideas out there because if you believe the roster is that good and you were that close, then you should be that much more ready to make the impact moves in the offseason.
But Sayre, the way that they're thinking about it is a little both, right? What can you achieve? What can you accomplish by going out and getting some of those top free agents, right? But if you can't, what are we going to do in the interim? And there is a conversation inside the building saying, okay, well, to bring 2 new linebackers in to teach them our defense, knowing how well we played last year, that may be problematic. So could the Broncos be resting on their laurels of saying, hey, listen, if we did have Bo Nix, just imagine what we could have accomplished. Is that a great strategy to have? Probably not, as other teams make their moves, right? But we know how this works. Like I go back to it again, man. It's the opening day of free agency. And every fan base wants to be able to wave a banner and say, hey, man, look at the splash moves we made and look at the fact that we won free agency. I said, well, the last time I checked, they don't give out a damn Lombardi for winning free agency, even though we know that some teams over the years, I think Rex Ryan one time proclaimed when he was with the Jets, hey, we won the offseason. What did you actually win? You didn't win a damn thing, right? You may have added some players that you're projecting to make your team better on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Yeah, but no one wins in the offseason. The idea is if you're not winning in the month of January and February, no one gives a damn. No one really cares. So that may be the philosophy that the Broncos have, even though we may disagree with it. But I'll ask you guys, if the Broncos made a change at tight end, and let's just say it wasn't Adam Trotman that they're bringing back on a 3-year deal. Let's just say it was Dallas Goedert or David Njoku. Would you feel any different about the Broncos and what they did as far as free agency in the opening day?
Yes.
A lot
100%.
different.
A lot different because that's going up into the batter's box and you're saying like, all right, I'm going to get a fastball right here. And you're swinging the crap out of the bat, assuming it's going to be a fastball because you're like, if he throws me a fastball, I'm going to hit it out of the stratosphere. Like it's the confidence with which you approach that process that to me indicates that, okay, this team is like believing in itself. It's the irony of the whole situation is that to show that you believe in yourself, you need to go out from the outside and bring in players who upgrade what you had as opposed to just bringing everybody back, because I'm sure the Seattle Seahawks are grateful that they didn't approach free agency last year saying, hey, let's run it back. We love Geno Smith. We love DK Metcalf. Like those are our guys, right? We developed them. We made them what they are today. Like if the Seahawks would have run it back, they don't win the Super Bowl. And that's just I know we bring up other teams as the example all the time, but the most recent Super Bowl champions, you could argue, are the team that won free agency last year. That would be the Seattle Seahawks. Sam Darnold, obviously they bring in DeMarcus Lawrence for the defense, playing big roles. So I just think that to me, like you go out and you go after those guys who are proven upgrades at the positions you have that you need.
That's crazy that Adam Trotman is that one bad apple that spoiled the bunch. And we're going to have to watch his stats this year to see if it was worth it to bring him back because, I mean, the reason I asked the question because that's kind of what I've been getting back from people is like, you don't like the fact that the team ran it back, but the fact that you ran it back with Adam Trotman, who only had 23 targets with 195 yards and a touchdown, it's just like, come on, dog, what are we doing?
Yeah, man, it's an interesting approach that the Denver Broncos have taken to the start of this offseason, that is for sure, at least the start of free agency, that is. So let's hit a quick break. When we come back, let's dive into the defense. A couple of notable names depart the Denver Broncos, one by their choice, I guess both technically by their choice, in Dre Greenlaw and Jonathan Franklin Myers. What does that mean for the Broncos moving forward? And we'll also take a look at that linebacker room when we come back right here on your Locked On Broncos Squad Show. All right, you guys, real quick, let me tell you about the fine folks over at FanDuel because college basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into an even bigger potential win with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your read. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up your potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team that you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style now with more upside behind it. So just head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. I'm an active FanDuel user, guys. It is my personal favorite sportsbook that I play with. If you're looking to get some skin in the game with college basketball, March Madness coming up, the rest of the NBA season, hockey, World Baseball Classic, make sure to check out our friends over at FanDuel and let them know that Locked On Broncos sent you. All right, welcome on back into your Locked On Broncos squad show. AP, Cody Roark, Sayre, Bedinger, and Nick Ferguson. Let's get right back on into it, folks. I don't know about you, Cody, but at the end of season media availability, as we're kind of standing there and watching it play out, I got the vibe that one of Strnad or Singelton was not going to be back. I'm a bit surprised that they brought both of them back, and I think it speaks to the conversation that Nick brought up maybe about a month or so ago about the complexities of running this Vance Joseph defense and how important it is to keep continuity at that position in particular. The news came out over the weekend about Strnad, and then, of course, Singelton yesterday afternoon. What do you just make about this linebacking room and the decision to run it back with both Singelton and Strnad?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to run it back with not Singelton, with Strnad. That was kind of my offseason thing. Like, I would love that because he's ascended, year over year. I thought he did a really great job starting last year to the point where we did some squad shows where we even talked about, hey, he should be the starter here primarily. When one of these guys, like when Dre returns from injury or like Alex comes back from his, 1 week layoff that he had essentially after having surgery, we were like, hey, like, what are the Broncos doing in this situation? Who do they start? I feel like Strnad was their best linebacker last season. And I didn't feel like it was particularly close. He's their best blitzing linebacker. He's their best run stuffer there. And he's also their best guy to drop back into coverage. I mean, that's the thing I like about Strnad is you're getting value with that. And I was on the boat of saying, hey, like, let's see what he and Dre Greenlaw have. Like, if the Broncos picked Strnad, I was like, I wonder. And I was sitting there having coffee with my wife on Sunday in downtown Littleton. And, we got the text that Strnad was coming back. I'm like, all right, what does this mean for Alex Singelton? If they don't get a deal done with him, then that means it's going to be Strnad and Greenlaw. And then they were working on the deal with Singelton. And then all of a sudden, hey, we're releasing Dre Greenlaw. So they are running it back with that. I think the widespread perception about this position that people have the problem with is last year, the Broncos, by going out and getting Dre Greenlaw, said that, hey, like, our linebacker room's not good enough as it is with the same group. Now that they released Dre Greenlaw, it's the same exact room with 3 guys who are undrafted, who are undrafted players, and 1 guy who's just been injured for a large portion of his NFL career, and Drew Sanders. So right now, it's like this position, I think just from a depth standpoint, I think is the most questionable position room right now for Denver. Just because, like, look, if Singelton and Strnad stay healthy, I think both can be fine. Is it the upgrade that maybe we were all hoping for? No, not necessarily. But I'm more worried about the depth behind them. That's really my biggest issue with linebacker is that you have unproven depth, and you need to add guys there that could eventually, like if you have an injury, you're confident in one of these guys stepping in and starting. I just don't know if that guy is on this roster right now, and that's what concerns me a little bit.
I think it's a fair thought. And it's interesting because, like, if I had to pick between, like, running back, tight end, and linebacker, like, I'm not as worried about the defense as a whole just because we know how good that unit is. Despite losing JFM, like, you still got Benito, Cooper, and Zach Allen up there. We got Pat Surtain and Talanoa Hufanga. But your point about the depth is very well noted. I mean, Sayre, like, what do you just make of the situation as a whole, but also just, like, essentially punting on Dre Greenlaw? I mean, I know it was a major discussion for us here on the show about his end-of-season remarks, and he just never really fit in. And it's not like it's just hard to fit in necessarily with this defense. Look at what Talanoa Hufanga did. I mean, that's a guy that came in here with open arms, learned the system, learned the scheme, and was an absolute rock star for the Denver Broncos. And I think that's the duality of the free agency period from last season is you go out there and sign 2 San Francisco 49ers. One you hit a home run with. The other one, it's like you're striking out on 3 pitches looking.
Which I think it's worth the risk, right? To try. I mean, to go after a guy like that, it was worth the price of admission to see, will this work? Because if Dre Greenlaw would have played at full strength, I mean, I know that it's all hypothetical at this point, but I kind of get the impression that that could have been exactly what the team needed, right? They were talking last year about, well, the Broncos want to upgrade their speed at the linebacker position, and this is exactly what will do that. Dre Greenlaw improves their toughness, and he brings that presence at the linebacker position, and he could be a top 10 player at linebacker in the league. So, I mean, it's worth the shot that they took, which was essentially 1 year, $11.5 million on a contract that had, a lot of funny money on it. And the Broncos basically had an out after one season, but it's disappointing still. I mean, even knowing like, man, I get it. Like he only played 8 regular season games. He was suspended for a game. He, not available, criticizing the practice schedule after the season, talking about the defense being like learning Spanish. It's still disappointing that we're not getting a chance to see, hey, what could it be like to have him at full strength once again? Because that possibility existed up until yesterday. And now it's like you have to go to the draft. That's circling back to the point that I was making before, is that now you've backed yourself into a corner of you have to draft somebody. And not that you wouldn't want to anyway, but I mean, now you have to draft a linebacker early, and you've backed yourself into that corner.
What are your thoughts here, Nick? I mean, I know, you and I specifically went back and forth on this Dre Greenlaw situation, and I wouldn't be surprised if his comments after the year ultimately did him in. Like maybe there was some belief that he could figure it out, but the Spanish thing is just crazy. And just, almost, and I know he's probably saying it tongue in cheek, like smiling while he says it, right? Like the vibes were never really there with Dre Greenlaw. He never really fit with this team as well.
Well, I'll say this. This is an example that freedom isn't always free, because we do have the right, the freedom of speech. And I got to give it to Dre Greenlaw. He was as honest as he can be. And that's one of the things that I loved about him as a player. He was just really honest about his opinion. Now, it shocked everyone that he said it, but let's be totally honest. There were probably certain people in the media who also kind of wanted to say those things, but couldn't do it, right? Because they're afraid of losing their ability to, and access to the team. But Dre Greenlaw shared his own honesty. And could that honesty have cost him his job? Probably so. And I don't think it would have cost him his job if he played more than 8 games. Now, if he played more than 8 games and he was balling, I mean, everyone would have kind of dismissed it, because that's what you get a chance to do when you're a player, you're balling. People overlook some of the things that you say and some of the things that you do. Now, I will say this. When Dre did play, he was very physical. He was the player that the Broncos were hoping to add to their roster, because he brought a lot of energy. He brought a lot of juice. The problem was he didn't bring it a lot because he wasn't on the field. Now, his honesty about saying that the defense was Spanish to him in comparison to what he learned under D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh, I would agree with that. Sometimes you go into a new system and it's really hard, especially when you're not on the field and now you're holding a script in your hand and they're telling you, hey, stand on the sideline and try to learn the defense that way. I can tell you guys, not going to do it. It is very hard. It is very difficult to do that. And when you lack the cohesion with the team because you're not really in there on, what I would consider to be vital reps, it makes it that much difficult. Like you guys brought up Talanoa Hufanga. Why was he extraordinary in his defense? Because he was available. He was there in meetings. He was there in practice. So he was able to see everything unfold in front of his eyes, and he wasn't standing on the sideline. I would like to think that maybe if Greenlaw was healthy, because he didn't practice and he didn't do a lot in training camp, maybe the story ends a little different, because this is what the Broncos were hoping. They were hoping that maybe bringing Greenlaw in there, they were going to force them to make a tough decision, Chouinard or Singelton. But that never happened, so it made the decision really easy for them. So they took the 2 guys they were familiar with, and who better to bring back than the guys who know your system already, so you eliminate the learning curve. The issue is what Cody and you guys are talking about is the depth. That is an issue. You have Drew Sanders, you have Lavelle Bailey, Kareem Reed, and you have Jordan Turner, right? Which one of those guys, if both Chouinard and Alex Singelton were out, did you trust to actually lead your defense? This is why I think, Chanel is still in play. And I would like to see the Broncos add a guy like that. but also Jacob Rodriguez. You have to bring guys in that's going to push the two guys who are starting, because everyone else, they're just guys. And that's no disrespect, but that's how the Broncos should look at the situation.
The running back Broncos, baby. The running back Broncos.
Well,
that's kind of
to
where
Nick's
we're at right
point
now.
too. It's like the injuries of like Singelton just tore his ACL in 2024. Like that's not just something that's like automatically never going to happen again after it does happen. And we talked about it. Like Hufanga also came to Denver with injury history. Evan Ingram came to Denver with some injury history. We have JK Dobbins there. So like the depth of this roster overall, that's the problem, is that you're signing starters who have like a cap on the upside that they bring to the table, in my opinion. I mean, we could talk about age, you could talk about talent, you could talk about longevity, a number of different things. So now what you've done is created a scenario where you have to draft depth players. Like that sucks, because you shouldn't be just drafting for depth. You should be drafting for like, you should be able to take the best player on your board at premium positions, or, you know, defensive tackle, offensive line. I'll keep banging that drum. It's now to the point to where it's like, we need a really good linebacker 3, because if any one of these guys gets hurt, we're throwing Drew Sanders out there, or Lavelle Bailey, who the team didn't even play him when they had injury problems this past couple of seasons, despite the fact that he was out there working with the starters during training camp. So the team is just sending way too many mixed messages, in my opinion, right now. They're saying like, we want to be aggressive. We want to go out there and we want to address these needs, and we want to be, you know, selectively aggressive, blah, blah, blah. Or we're not, you know, oblivious to the fact, or whatever the word was that Sean Payton used about the 1-score games last year. We know that we got to be better in these areas, takeaways, run game consistency. Okay, so that's coming from rookies, and just time, the passage of time is what we're saying. I can't get on board with that.
No, I think you're spot on. I really do. And look, there's still some offseason left. There's still some free agents still out there. So we'll see how Denver kind of handles. Yeah, it is. It is only day 2. But to the point that you made earlier in the show, Cody, like the big fish are no longer in the pond, right? Like they had an opportunity to legitimately go up there and upgrade linebacker, tight end, running back. Instead, they'll make some supplementary moves, you'd think, around the edges.
I will say, like a few years ago, we were having the similar conversation, like when the Broncos let Draymond Jones go and they signed Zach Allen. Everyone's like, wait, why did the Broncos do this? That move. I think that's where George and Sean worked out. I feel like that's where they've earned a little bit of trust here, right? Like at the time when some of those moves happened, we were like, wait a minute, why did the Broncos do this? They saw something that, look, and we can analyze fits and guys who, might be available, and they could go a completely different direction, and it could actually end up paying off. Whereas like last year, we were like so hyped about Greenlaw, and then it just didn't pan out, right? It's just one of those things. So, I mean, I think they've earned some trust in that regard here. But certainly, yeah, you want to continue to improve. Like, I think that Denver has a good roster, but I think they could always be better. I think everyone believes that. Like in the NFL, you only have a window for a certain amount of time. And Bo Nix's rookie deal, he's going to be after this season, he's eligible to get an extension. So, what's the timeline and the process on that? I just think it's about pushing all your chips in. Everybody else is going to make moves to get better. You have to find a way to get better in some ways. And maybe that step of getting better is, hey, we hope that maybe these players can take a step forward, right? They could be better than they were last year, right? That's part of the process, but it's not always a guarantee. And I think that's why there's frustration. And I even want to say, too, there's no guarantee that even signing a big-name free agent is going to lead to success either, right? So it's just like perception, like context, everything else in the middle. Like it's chaos. It's a whole bunch of we don't know what it is until it is.
It is indeed chaos. All right, let's hit our final break. When we come back, a couple of closing thoughts. We'll put a bow on the show and take a look at what the Broncos have to work with here the rest of the free agency period. All that and more when we come back. Locked On Broncos Squad Show. All right, I do want to hit on this real quick, Cody. I know we were kind of texting about it a little bit in the thread. Opting not to really engage in a contract extension or a contract negotiation with Jonathan Franklin Myers. And I think we kind of understand why the Broncos did that, because they are stacked on defensive line. But, it is what it is, I suppose.
I mean, my man, you were like Jonathan. It's John Franklin Myers. You don't go
Or
by
John Franklin. Sorry.
That would be such a.
Did I say Jonathan?
Yeah, you said Jonathan.
No,
I was like,
might
that's
be.
such a
Might be.
You know, like here, and some people may disagree with me on this. I feel like the loss of JFM this offseason is going to be one of the biggest things that we're going to be talking about in the regular season. You know, his impact. You know, I've had people tell me, oh, you know, he wasn't that much of an impact player. I strongly disagree. Okay. You can go watch the film, watch how the Broncos defense, how it attacks, how they scheme up pass rush one-on-one situations, and you'll see that if you truly understand what you're looking at. JFM was a very important, impactful player for them. And, you know, a lot of people are saying, well, hey, they got Aniello Piro, they got Savion Jones. That's awesome. Like, Aniello Piro took such a massive step forward this past season. I'm happy for him with that. But his pressure rate, his production didn't even match anything close to what JFM does from a physical dominance standpoint, right? He's not much of a pass rusher, in my opinion. More so, I think he is as a run plugger. Savion Jones, we don't know what Savion's going to bring to the table yet. Maybe he's going to be super awesome, right? But I think you also have to factor in, okay, you lose JFM. There's times where Zach Allen has to come off the field because Sean Payton talks about pitch counts with those guys specifically. Is that defensive end group right now, is it good enough? Is it better? I think it's taken a step back. Now you lose BT Jordan to the Dallas Cowboys as well. The pass rush specialist that players say they credit so much of their success to what he was able to do. I'm just anxious about this depth, and I think that the loss of JFM, the fact that Denver didn't even – I mean, I'll tell you this. I've talked to JFM. You know, we've heard from him in the things that he wanted to return. He would have taken a team-friendly deal to come back, but because the Broncos didn't initiate contact, the Broncos made it clear, hey, we're not going to bring you back. He went out and he got a bag, and now he's landed on a very, very good defensive front right there in Tennessee alongside Jermaine Johnson and Jeffrey Simmons, like for Robert Saleh. Like that is a huge, huge move for him and deserved. But I think the loss of JFM is going to be a lot bigger than people think.
Maybe Dre Greenlaw joins him in Tennessee. Who knows?
He goes back to San Francisco.
I think those are the two plays. I think he's going to Tennessee or he's going to San Francisco personally. But yeah,
maybe Cam Jordan could be a decent replacement for.
I would be fine with that.
Here we go. Alvin Kamara's up next, right? There's
Alvin
your running back.
Alvin will retire. He's going to Alvin. From what people, I talked to a lot of New Orleans Saints beat reporters, and they even say like Alvin has always said he doesn't want to play for any other NFL team. That if he had to go play for another NFL team, more than likely he would retire.
Until Sean.
Unless maybe Sean Payton calls him up.
Yeah,
so that's the one scenario.
But also,
so think about this, gentlemen. Think about what we're actually talking about. We're talking about Adam Trotman and how a lot of fans are disappointed with that move. Well, why did that move take place? Right? We logically looking at it like, well, no, we wouldn't do that for the obvious reasons, but his connection to Sean Payton has allowed that to happen. And making a decision as far as JFM, that decision was made a long time ago if you really think about it. Go back to week 8. You think about, well, who got the bag, right? It was Malcolm Roach. Well, was Malcolm Roach at that point, statistically speaking, did he have more sacks than John Franklin Myers? The answer to that question is hell no. But he was the one that got the bag, right? Why did he get the bag? Because his relationship and familiarity with Sean Payton, right? And that you're not going to be able to keep everyone. If you ask me who would prefer to keep over JFM or Malcolm Roach, I'm going to say JFM. But once again, we got to think about what goes into making these decisions. Is there a little bias in it? Yes. And to help out, you need to have familiarity with the head coach who is helping to make a lot of these decisions. So this is why we're seeing some of these players who we would have opted not to see, we're constantly seeing in a kind of, rinse and repeat type of situation. So, yeah, I mean, I wish John Franklin Myers well. I mean, he's going to do well in Tennessee being with Robert Saleh. But, man, we're gonna miss him. We're going to miss his level of production and being able to push the pocket and push guys to Zach Allen or push guys outside the pocket. So that's going to be one of those positions that we're going to have to watch this season to see who steps up in that role.
Well, it has been an interesting first 24 hours of free agency, to say the least. We're going to be back on Friday, so hopefully the Broncos have made a move or two. Maybe they haven't, well, you never know with this Broncos team. They were going to be aggressive, and it seemed, at least as we were told, that was, I guess they were aggressive in keeping their own players, but they weren't aggressive in trying to bring in some fresh faces and fresh players. But we'll see if that changes between now and Friday afternoon. But Cody, any closing thoughts before we get out of here, brother?
Better to be a Broncos fan right now than a Nuggets fan.
Amen to that, bro.
Wow.
Amen to that.
You gotta kick a brother when he's down, huh?
Hey, this is the most frustrating Nuggets season I've seen in the Nikola Jokic era.
It's bad. Sayre, anything off the chest?
What's up with Nikola turning the ball over, though?
What's that?
Oh, I could do a whole other. I did log down Nuggets last night. I can tell you that.
Guys, man.
The Nugget fan is
Shea,
not fun.
Shea Gilgeous is just the man. You know, he's
brother,
he's got it figured out.
You're gonna get so much.
He's got
hate
it
now.
figured out.
They're
He doesn't.
coming
He
after
just
you,
needs. He just needs to know the questions on the quiz. He's got all the answers, and so he's the real deal, man. No, I'm just messing around. I don't care about the NBA. I literally had to ask Aniello what he was talking about when we were off the air about the Nuggets. He's like, the Nuggets suck. I was like, what are you talking about? The Nuggets suck. I'm like, aren't they like the best team in the NBA? That's how little I care about the NBA. So in case you guys are ever wondering, I mean, it is NHL level, almost bordering on NHL level of like, don't care.
If it was like, I care when the playoffs start, right? Or if they release the season by 10 to 15 games, I would care a lot more. But it's like NBA season begins, it runs really through our important part of the NFL season. So that's why I stay tuned to my guy Brian Blackburn to Locked On Nuggets.
It's a bunch of excuses, Nick.
Yes,
A bunch of excuses.
I love the NBA, and Nuggets fans, if you're on here, hate me if you want to. I love the fact that what SGA is doing, he understands the game. And in order to bend the rules, you must know the rules. It is not your fault that the rules are what they are, right? And talk about being creative, being able to create your own shot, being able to create contact, knowing as though the league now looks at SGA like they're the Jordan rules. You touch him, he's going to the foul line. I mean, it is what it is. But this is why you play the game, though. God, I can't.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm with you. Hey, I'm with you. I'm going to nickname him the traveling salesman because you can travel in the NBA these days, and he's a great salesman, right? He's getting all the foul calls. So the traveling salesman, that's got to be his nickname from now on. That'd be a great nickname for SGA.
You need to get the Nuggets squad show up so we could hear AP and Blackburn go at it.
Well, I got a 15-minute rant on the Locked On Nuggets YouTube channel from last night. If you guys want to go check that out, they're kind of cooked right now. They're kind of cooked. But all right,
the Nuggets. I'll say this last thing I'll say: the same problems David Adelman is having are the same problems that Michael Malone had. He called players out. People in the media just kind of ripped Michael Malone for doing it, but he was absolutely right.
Amen.
Absolutely right.
I miss Michael Malone. I
miss it. Yes.
All right. Good stuff today, gentlemen. We'll do it again on Friday, as we mentioned. Hopefully the Broncos will be able to move or two. Regardless of what they do or don't do, we'll have a fresh squad show for you guys to break down everything in the world of Broncos football. But for Cody Roark, Sayre, Bedinger, Nick Ferguson, I am Aniello Piro. Another Locked On Broncos squad show in the books. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys on Friday.